Now's the time for you to share. In difference, you have to care. Deep inside, you know it's true. How do I get through to you? Open your eyes to the horror. Open your eyes to the pain. When you live in a box, no one knows your name. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter, from deep in the bowels of our underground lair, where we've got so many ideas that are so much gooder than anything that the worst president ever has been able to come up with in a good year and a half.
No one knows your name. Is that what I heard?
You did hear that.
Okay,
yes.
that's who, I don't know who sings it. It's the Cheers theme song, right?
No, that's where everybody knows
everybody
your name.
knows.
Yeah. Big difference.
Okay.
Big difference.
All right. That's a Run DMC.
Run DMC. Wow, that would be a new one.
Is it 2-pack?
I don't feature... I don't know any of those songs.
Oh, I wouldn't know them either. The only thing I know from Run DMC was the WrestleMania rap.
Yeah. That and the song they did with Aerosmith.
And what was that? They did a song with Aerosmith?
Yeah. Why am I drawing a blank now? I'd have to look it up. It's,
well, it doesn't matter because I don't know the answers. So why don't you just enlighten
Walk This Way. Didn't they do that?
Okay.
Yeah.
That was Run DMC? Yeah.
It was Aerosmith, and then Run DMC did it with Aerosmith, like in the 90s or something like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of Aerosmith's resurgence.
Well,
and then they had a couple of good albums, and then putting out like Honkin' on Bobo. I'm sorry. That's a terrible name for an album. Who's going to buy that? Honkin' on Bobo. It was a blues album, supposedly. I don't know.
Well, can I ask a question about you musicians?
What?
Why is it that every time a musician is working, they feel like they got to change something?
It's part of the creative process that you don't want to get stale. I mean, some people don't care. I mean, look at AC/DC. But
you don't want to get stale.
And they're not stale. But they don't reinvent themselves every album. Some do to push the envelope, I guess.
I think they do it on purpose. I don't know.
Yes.
To me, if it's working, then just...
Right.
I don't know. I don't understand it. I have no creative side to my brain. So... type A all the way, so I wouldn't know. But it just seems like, and I think TV shows go through this. They go through this no man's land period, and maybe that's just the thing. If you got a 30-year career in something, you're going to have ups and downs, just like coaches or just like anybody else. Yeah. But it's sort of like, somebody tries to completely change. It's just kind of like, what happened to the.
But there's something to that. I mean, there's a thing called sophomore slump in music where a lot of times people say your second record isn't as good as your first because you had all your life to write your first album, and then your second one, you're in a rush to get out. Now, that's not always the case, obviously.
See, I would phrase it as it's hard to make every album like your best one.
Yeah.
Everything you do is compared to your best.
Absolutely.
So that's maybe where, and maybe you're right. Maybe sometimes it is the first, but it's, it's hard to keep that up. It's like everything just can't be an A+ all the time. It's kind of like a movie sequel that fails. Well, why wasn't it as good as the one before it? I don't know. But okay, Jay.
Yes.
Enough talking about. We've talked about music 3 minutes too long. What enlighten us on the music from the podcast on Spot the Fly.
It is Who Cares Wins by Anthrax.
Oh, okay. I had that once.
Yeah, I bet.
That's right. I took a COVID vaccine, and then I got it again, but it wasn't as bad.
I figure a song about homelessness, it would be apropos for the evening, so...
It would be, but before we get into that, Jay, I want to get your reaction. What's your big news in the wrestling world? Vince McMahon stepping down as the chairman of I still call it the WWF, but WWE, the publicly traded company. Wrestling's never been the same since.
Yeah, I did actually hear that.
Yeah, 77 years young. He's been the president of Titan Sports and the WWE since 1982.
Mm-hmm. Back when we thought he was just an announcer.
With a great hairline. Who's the guy with the great hairline?
Right.
What do you think of, how would you sum up the career of Vince McMahon? I mean, this is a guy who spent he's actually a third generation promoter. His dad, of course, Vince McMahon Sr., the original owner of the WWF, which is wrestling back in the territorial days in the
Right.
New York market. And then Roderick McMahon, his grandfather, was a boxing promoter.
Oh.
What's your take on Vince McMahon? I mean, what's your reaction to him, this 40-year run he has, where wrestling was, what wrestling became? I'm sure there's positives and negatives to it, but what's your opinion on Vince McMahon and his long career finally coming to an end at 77 years old?
Well, I don't think you can take away from him what a great businessman he is. He created an empire. Very few people that go into business create an empire. Even when you look at the other wrestling companies, they have never been able to keep up with the WWE. So that is undeniable. However, when you look at what wrestling was and what wrestling is, and I don't know how much of it's his fault. I don't know how much of it is the people that he's brought up with him. I don't know how much of it is, I don't know if they're turning it over into more capable hands or the same people, that you're going to see any change where it's going to stop just being, I
think with it being a woke corporation now,
yeah,
you're never going to see it go back to where it was in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon was a visionary. When he took over his father's company, he went up against all these old 60, 70-year-old guys. Mm-hmm. Whether that was Vern Gagne, whether it was Stu Hart, whether it was Paul Bosch, Sam Mushnick. I mean, these guys had the Crockett's. Mm-hmm. None of them had a vision. None of them could see where wrestling was going. None of them were on cable TV. Nobody had that vision of Vince McMahon. And then he went up against Ted Turner,
yeah,
where, Ted had 20 companies to bleed off losses on and tried to outspend him. The guy owned his own networks, and still couldn't do it. I mean, and he emerged the king,
right?
And he's undisputed. I think the WWF going public was maybe one of the worst things that ever happened to wrestling, because once you become a corporation, it's not Vince McMahon's company. It's not his money. All the decisions aren't his anymore.
And belong to the shareholders.
Yeah, and I think that's where the creativity and the vision just petered.
Right.
I think it took a long time for that to happen. But I think wrestling will never cease to be just a more of a wrestling used to love to get headlines.
Yeah.
Now wrestling does anything they can to stay out of the headlines.
Right.
And that's a strange dynamic to watch. So I understand why he did it. I mean, there's a lot of advantages to being that. And but I think for what's happened to wrestling, I think it's too bad that I think it needs a dose of competition.
Yeah.
And I think, and I have great ideas on how I'd change wrestling.
Yeah.
I'd basically do everything the opposite of what they're doing.
That's a good start. I mean, it used to be about, your macho strong men, or you had your technicians, and now it's just everybody's got their special move, and it's, everybody can now get out of the special move or counter it. And
I think what's happened is that they've tried to make it more legitimate. And I think that if, my answer to that is, if you want something legitimate, go watch MMA, go watch Ultimate Fighting. Okay.
Yeah.
Two guys wrestling in their underwear couldn't sell 50 seats at the local rec center. No one wants that.
Right.
I think they cater more to the critics, to the internet geek fan. I think they ought to go back. They just ought to drop the gloves again. And, there's a lot I can't even get into everything I would change. I just, when you own your own network and there's still no creativity, there's still no your talent. You put handcuffs on your talent. I don't understand it. I don't understand how they don't look at their TV show and say, God, this sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how they don't.
Well, and there's certain topics they just won't.
I would say
near
90% of them they won't come near. The same company that produced Val Venus and Gold Dust and The Godfather won't touch anything remotely controversial. I would do the 100% opposite.
Yeah.
The 100%. I'd make wrestling the most talked about thing on earth.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it. You don't need it. You don't need sponsors. You own your own network. I don't understand it. But it's just to reflect on Vince's vision for WrestleMania and the pay-per-views and the anticipation of what cable TV would become, and just always in the forefront, always thinking to the future. And I think, like as a business guy, and a marketer, he has the mind for that, or had the mind for that. And maybe that's part of it. Just at his age, he can't do it anymore.
Right. He's younger than Biden is.
Yeah. This is true.
Yes.
That's not saying much. That's 98% of the population. But
right.
Anyway, so Vince McMahon's long career is finally over. And all the trials and tribulations he went through, and all the times he was sued. And for him to persevere and come out on top, man, all the failures like the XFL and so on and so forth. Anytime he ventured out of wrestling, it was kind of a disaster. How about the WBF? You still take IcoPro?
Wow, yeah.
You give that to your neighbors that end up on your back step. All right.
Yes.
Well, Jay, you ever been homeless before?
No, I have not been homeless before.
Me neither.
And I don't take that for granted. Let me just say, I am super grateful. Every single day that I draw breath, I am very, very grateful that I have never been homeless. And it could happen to anybody. It could, and it's super unfortunate. And so I'm super compassionate about it. But thank the good Lord, I have never been homeless.
Okay, now before we get into this, go too far, what are your thoughts on getting people out of homelessness? Because I keep hearing about, we got a homeless problem, we got an affordable housing problem, and everything we seem to do does not change the amount of people that are still, I think there's, to a certain degree, you can't help somebody who won't help themselves.
Yeah.
But what is the homelessness issue, generally speaking? It's been there for a long time in the United States. But what, I think when things are going well, a lot of people look the other way. What is your take on it? Why is it there? What should be, what is the role of government in that, in your mind? What's your take on that issue?
Well, and this is the thing, and let me just preface it by saying this. Government thinks they can cure anything, solve anything. And
funny how they rarely do.
Right. They usually make it worse. However, this is a problem that is as old as time. The good Lord himself said, you will always have the poor with you. It is not anything that we are ever going to solve 100%. And why? Because it's a multifaceted problem. You've got people that are, they have mental illness. You've got people that just, say, teens, young adults that want to rebel against their parents or against society. So they choose that lifestyle. You've got people that are just down on their luck. All sorts of different reasons why people end up homeless. They have people on drugs and alcohol that's the reason they're homeless. And so with all of this, the most solvable maybe is if you're able to get people that are addicted to drugs and alcohol into rehab, and they actually want to do it, and get them into a halfway house, all that kind of stuff. People that are mentally having mental illness issues. Maybe there's a way to do that. Maybe start by taking care of our veterans better when they come home. Because there's a whole lot of homeless veterans that deal with mental illness.
Yeah, if we could take care of illegal aliens, why can't we take care of our vets?
Absolutely.
And not make the veterans seek it out all the time. I mean, here's one of my gripes with that is you can't take somebody who's been at war and just drop them in their neighborhood like nothing happened. There should be a transition back into civilian life. Kind of like a police officer whose partner is killed or something. They don't just give them a gun and put them out on the streets the next day. There's a whole protocol for you work at a desk for a while. There's counseling available. There's I believe it's 90 days.
Yep.
Before you can, and I commend both the police unions and a lot of city councils for coming together on an issue like that, because I think, there has to be some sort of period to protect these officers. But our soldiers, it's like, hey, man, thanks. All right, now go work at. I was always thinking of the scenes in Rambo. Go work at the car wash.
Right.
And definitely there. I watch what's going on with these homeless encampments, and you are seeing them in big cities everywhere.
Everywhere.
All over the West Coast. Nobody will do a thing about it. All over Minneapolis, it's invaded up in Duluth now. They're in St. Paul. They're out in New York. Just like a sea of tents. And first of all, where do they get the tents? The tents aren't
question.
cheap. I own a tent. It's like $100. It's kind of curious where they get that.
I wonder if it's used and they find it on Craigslist, or I know after the Haiti earthquake in 2010, USAID donated all of those tents. So maybe
I know some churches that are active in that also.
That could be as well. Yeah.
So this sea of tents and the loitering, the disruption. I mean, imagine walking to your local park and just seeing a sea of tents of people literally living in a park that's supposed to be closed after 10 p.m. Mm-hmm. The problem is getting worse and worse and worse. I don't see anybody doing anything, anybody proposing anything. I don't see anybody enforcing our ordinances and things like that. What do you see with that issue? I mean, why are we having this all of a sudden?
Well, I think the tent cities themselves are a big problem. I think, we're just allowing this issue to become front and center, but we're not doing anything to help them. We're just...
Okay, why not, though? What's the reason that nobody will give them what parents would call tough love? What is...
Well... tough love isn't allowed anymore, Andrew. You know that. You can't spank, you can't reprimand, you can't send somebody to detention. You can't do it. So instead, it's just better to have a park where kids are getting dropped off after school that's full of heroin users, and just let the two intermingle and see what happens. How long until we see some kid raped or killed?
I'm sure it's happened. Especially in the communities where it's a lot of immigrants, don't speak English real well, are afraid to get deported, even though nobody will deport them. I guarantee the human trafficking, I guarantee you it's going on, no doubt about it. Right. I have zero faith that that's not going on, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I just want to tell everybody something. The National League of Cities, Jay, one of your favorite groups.
Oh, yes.
Has put out a homeless encampments overview for city leaders. So, this is going out everywhere. And basically their answer, between 2007 and 2017, there was a 1,342% increase in homeless encampments.
Oh, my goodness.
So listen to what they have to say. about. You tell me, will this make things gooder or worser?
Okay.
Some individuals choose to live in encampments due to lack of better housing alternatives. Well, if you're homeless, what are your housing alternatives? I'm just curious. What are they?
The bridge or
a garbage can? I don't know.
Box in the alley? I don't know.
The shelter space available or shelter system requirements and conditions like sobriety, entrance fees, separation from partners and pets, blah, 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 may be incompatible with an individual's current circumstances. Not making this up. This is at nlc.org. Conducting evictions of encampments, or what they call sweeps, often displaces individuals rather than reducing the number of individuals experiencing homelessness. So, basically, getting rid of these camps is counterproductive. You have to leave them. So it's kind of like, your kid keeps screwing up. Just let them screw up.
Yeah.
Don't do anything about it.
Oh, that's love, isn't it? I love you so much, I'm going to let you destroy yourself.
Listen to this.
Yes.
Dismantling encampments over public health concerns is counterproductive.
Really? It's better to live in poop?
I guess so.
Wow. Who knew?
I just wonder if they're all vaccinated.
Well, I'm sure they're not.
I mean, come on, you can get kicked out of the army for not having a vaccine, but you want to cross the border or live in an encampment? You telling me a virus couldn't whip through there? Like it could whip through. I mean, the sixth could whip through there. I mean, absolutely it could. So basically, the effective and empathetic responses to encampments, compassionate communities, is what that's called, Jay.
Oh,
obviously they have. They use Oakland, California, as their prime example of a compassionate community.
Oh, and why wouldn't they?
In the years leading up to 2016, the city of Oakland struggled to stymie a growing population of unhoused individuals. That's not what we're calling it. Community activists and council members alike noted the encampment rules were ineffective and futile. Really? I got an idea. How about Oakland elect Rudy Giuliani as the mayor, and we'll see how ineffective they are. Just saying.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever you think of Rudy, I think he would be a swift but just individual.
Yeah.
Okay. The city of Oakland worked in partnership with leaders from the encampment community. So I guess the encampment people elected the encampment community council to go deal with the city. So we're illegally sitting here on a park or a sidewalk, but we're going to elect representation to meet with the city council.
I wonder if Murderers Row could do the same thing. We're going to elect some of our own to go deal with the warden of the prison and or the governor of the state so that we can get our grievances addressed. I'm not, get me here. I'm not comparing homeless people to murderers, but I'm just thinking of another community of people that are breaking the law. You could say anything, I guess, you could have the crack house council.
You could, the mob. I mean,
it's, yeah.
So they work to provide waste pickup, portable toilets, sanitation stations, mobile health clinics, and large concrete barriers. I wonder whose expense that was all at. What's the budget of the encampment? Do they pass a budget?
Yeah.
Have the levy approved?
Well, I'm sure it's there in the city budget. I'm sure that they've set something aside for it. I don't know what, or it comes through the county more than likely through the Health and Human Services budget.
The city also coordinated with social services, faith-based organizations, volunteers, and nonprofits to provide food drop-offs, of course, paid for by somebody else. and directed social services and relief employees to the area with the ultimate goal of helping residents find permanent housing. Of course, the residents could have done this themselves, I might throw out there.
Right. And they've made it so comfortable. I mean, okay, it is not comfortable to be homeless. However, they have tried to ease the uncomfortableness of it to a point where maybe those who have chosen that as a lifestyle are less likely to want to get out of it.
There always needs to be incentives to get people off of it. There has to be that. You reward bad behavior, this is what you're going to get. I mean, Jay, what if everybody did this?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I always go back to, what if everybody just decided that they weren't going to work, weren't going to pay anything, weren't going to buy anything, just sit around and let somebody else give them something? What if everyone did that?
Yeah, well, we've got a lot of people to do.
Yeah, we got half the people who are takers, half the people who are makers.
I mean, we're sitting in the middle of the great resignation right now where millions of people decided, I don't want to work anymore. Or, I'm going to take a little time off for myself. And, I can get all this sweet COVID money. Why not?
Well, that runs out at some point. I mean, like Margaret Thatcher always said, the problem is you run out of other people's money. I mean, that's ultimately, the demise of socialism is that you as soon as you got 51% of the people on the dole, there's no way that can be maintained.
Right.
But I go back to this. Everybody talks about, quote unquote, the root causes. You hear that a lot. The root causes.
Yeah.
What I don't understand, in fact, maybe they do get it. Maybe this is being done on purpose. Pardon me. But do not the people understand that they themselves have created this? It's kind of like watching government right now. Oh, we're not headed toward a recession. We're going to stop it. We're going to fix it. Wait a minute, you jerks. You've caused this.
Yeah.
Your shutdowns, your the Fed screwing around with interest rates, spending money you don't have, printing money and buying it back. You've caused these problems. Don't tell me you're going to fix it. It's the same thing here. How many cities are we going to listen to talk about affordable housing? Yet housing does nothing but get more unaffordable. Is it a shock then that some people fall through the cracks?
Nope.
So why is it we have immigrants who come here? They come here with nothing. I don't blame them for coming, but they come in here and right away they're on the system.
Yes, indeed.
And these people encourage them to come, or it's because if it's in the name of diversity and inclusion and all that crap, then they come and they make up homeless camps. Now, I'll tell you what, in California, how can you possibly use California as any kind of example to set to the world?
An example of what not to do.
California is a dump. It was once a state people dreamed about. I dreamed about California.
Absolutely. There's not a Midwesterner.
Listen to a Beach Boys song, okay?
Right.
I mean,
there's not a Midwesterner alive that didn't dream of going to California, at least, if not to live, at least to vacation.
I mean, surfing in the sun.
Yeah.
That's who took the Dodgers. I mean, at Hollywood. I mean, there was a lure about California. Now, man.
The only thing worse than the homeless encampments is Hollywood.
Well, yeah, they live in all their gated communities with massive security and support defunding the police. Yeah. They tell us walls don't work if they got walls around their house.
Oh, yes.
Well, must work to a certain extent. But I mean, you look at this and you look at this hands-off approach. You look at this approach, well, we're not going to enforce the law. We're not going to make them do anything. We're going to let them indefinitely sit there.
Yes.
And that's what you're going to get. So now, everything that happens in the big cities, Jay, we all know this eventually bleeds out to the suburbs. I mean, whether that is $15 minimum wage, whether it's ranked choice voting, whether it's defund the police, whether it's, you name the issue.
Yeah.
And Tobacco 21, we went over we've done shows on all this stuff. It all comes out eventually. And I could just see one getting set up in Golden Valley. Mm-hmm. And I could see Boy Wonder sitting there with, the lady with the hyphenated name, and then Jillian Rosenquist, your girlfriend. I could see them all sitting there. Well, I'll tell you what, we got to be compassionate.
Oh, yeah.
We got to have inclusion. We can't, they want to go, now, if they camped out at Brookview Golf Course, but that would be different. They want to campaign out in front of somebody's house on a different street, they'd probably allow it. I don't know if they'd allow it on the old golf course.
They might. I don't know. Getting people off of there, they're such a compassionate city. I mean, it's not a cause they haven't picked up. It's you got to have equitable transit. You got to have equitable housing. You got to let carjackers run around free, right?
Police is just in chaos in Golden Valley. It's chaos.
Well, anytime you lose half your force or whatever it is. Sorry, Golden Valley, but you're failing.
Well, and again, nobody getting the message there. I mean, you have a city council filled with personal agendas, and they're just fine with what's going on. In my book, I don't think they think there's anything wrong.
Well, they'd fix it if they did.
Yeah, and again, I think it's the backdoor way, like we talked about last week, the backdoor way of defunding the police. Mm-hmm. Claim you can't fill spots, don't pay them, whatever, and eventually the positions are going to go away.
Yep.
With the cast of St. Louis Park, well, I can't believe you don't have encampments there.
Yeah.
And you think Jake the Snake's going to do anything?
No, but I haven't seen any. Now, I've spent a lot of time in that city, and I've walked a lot of those streets and a lot of those parks, and I have not seen any, to their credit. So, not yet.
We'll see. We'll see if they're in front of Jake the Snake's house. Maybe for a minute I could buy that they were going to do something, but I just don't. I think you're going to see it creep out. I think you're going to see the limousine liberals, move out to Wyzetta if that happens. I don't, the cast of characters running in Robbinsdale, it wouldn't surprise me if that became encampment filled.
Oh, I'm sure. They'll all have a lakeside view.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's just horrible. There's an article here about what's gone on recently in South Minneapolis. And hang on a second. Let me find which one. I sent you so many. CBSnews.com. This is from June 22nd of 2022. Neighbors, businesses frustrated, concerned over growing encampments in South Minneapolis. And if you look at it, it's just...
Wow.
Residents in a South Minneapolis neighborhood are asking city leaders for help in dealing with growing homeless encampments. Well, let me ask a question there, citizens. No offense. You elected these morons. Can you name a problem they've solved? Why would you have any, This is a drone there's a drone video of dozens of these tents that sit on a city-owned lot near 29th and 14th. It's 29th Street and 14th Avenue.
29th Straert.
Straert, that's right. Nice spell check there.
Yeah.
This is the 15th camp to pop up in the Midtown Phillips neighborhood over the last year and a half.
Just in that neighborhood.
How many neighborhoods are in Minneapolis? Like 100?
No, there's not that many.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm thinking neighborhood. I'm thinking much smaller than maybe.
Midtown Phillips. I mean, you're talking about where like the Midtown Exchange is. You're talking Chicago and Lake, a little south of there, a little north of there.
So say there's, what do you think? There are 40 neighborhoods?
Maybe.
I mean,
in the 30s up towards 40, maybe. Yeah.
Okay. So the 15th in a year and a half. So let's just take 15 times 30. Let's take 10 times 30.
Yeah.
That's 300.
Wow. And there are dozens.
Yeah, I mean, neighbors and business owners.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting sentence. Who wrote this, by the way? Neighbors and business owners in their tired of living next to what they
Reg Chapman of CBS, Minnesota.
Didn't he used to play for the Suns, Reg Chapman?
I don't know.
Okay, well, not the greatest writing here, but anyhow. No. Hooking up their cell phones to people's electricity, using people's water, not turning off the water when they're done. They've had break-ins, says one homeowner. The neighbor says people who speak out against the encampment are retaliated against, so this person did not want to show their face. People loitering in people's yards, constant traffic, constant trash, people using their garden for a bathroom. Concerned neighbors did meet with city.
No, people are using the bathroom in my garden, she said. She has a bathroom in her garden, apparently.
Yeah, I rephrased it. Got to get those tomatoes growing.
Yeah.
Concerned neighbors.
That was like a little human waste to make the garden grow.
Yeah. Concerned neighbors did meet with city and county officials about the issues back in March. More than 100 people attended. So far, none of the priorities from that meeting have been accomplished. Last 5 weeks, really, we go on tough times, said Muhammad Kali, who manages the Median Mall, which sits directly across from the encampment. Situation create a lot of people not generating good income. Interesting English there. You write that for him, Jay? Kali said.
Me.
Some of the 50 small businesses have closed, and people have stopped coming because they fear their own safety.
Wait a second. The Medina Mall? Is it the Medina Mall or the Median Mall? This really is the worst written article I've ever seen.
I'm going to say Median Mall.
Okay.
I don't think it's Medina.
I think I've been to... The Somalis have a couple of malls down in that area where it's all like... Their kind of dress, their kind of food, all that. They're really friendly people, from when I've been in there. And interesting, but yeah, I don't know which one this is.
Okay, well, we'll say it's the media. Really, we are struggling to do business, Kali said. This is where we live, blah, blah, blah. City leaders are challenged to find housing for people living in the tent and relief for those who live and work nearby. Why is it up to them to find housing?
I don't know. Because that's what we do now. We turn to government and say, hey, fix this, will ya?
But this is a city-owned site.
Yeah.
If I walked in and I just want to know, if I walked in and laid down at the convention center and just set up camp inside there, would they let me do that?
Yeah, I don't know. Inside
I am
like that?
I am a honky.
They don't let anybody else set up camp inside,
Fine.
I guess. But
I'll sit right out front.
Yeah?
Get the grill.
Oh, that'd be a nice place to have a grill because it's all cement.
Yeah, sit right out front there. Telling me they wouldn't do something?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I suppose Minneapolis owns that, right? It's public property.
Yeah, the convention center, sure.
Isn't that their law? Or is it just parks where they allow this? But although we've seen them on freeway entrance and exit ramps and stuff too, so it can't be just that. But I thought that Minneapolis had passed a law to the effect of they weren't going to prosecute anything in the parks or anything like that.
Well, I mean, passing a law is useless since they don't enforce them anyway.
Right.
St. Paul, 38 campsites in St. Paul. Homelessness encampments growing again in St. Paul as COVID relief funding runs out. So COVID relief funding was going to have people live in camps?
Wow.
This is from May 22nd, 2022, twincities.com. And just think, the picture shows a guy from California has been living in a St. Paul tent at the Lower Landing Park for 3 days while visiting his brother in Minneapolis. Can I ask a question? How'd you get from California to St. Paul, visit your brother in Minneapolis, but you're somehow living in a tent. How's that happen?
Yeah, I don't know. There are family dynamics that I don't understand. I know if someone in my family was being faced with homelessness, I'd be taking them in. Now, there are, I guess, instances where maybe you don't trust a relative, a sibling, or whatever, because they're addicted to drugs or alcohol and they steal or they get violent. But then you need to seek out a different situation to try and help them out. Which, again, being an adult, even if they're a vulnerable adult, sometimes you can't control that situation. That makes it really hard.
Yeah, I mean, again, a hand up with expectations in return is one thing. But to just stand there and continue to feed them, house, just all it does is encourage the same behavior.
Well, I'm surprised that in Minneapolis they haven't gone as far as, say, San Francisco or L.A. and just started handing out drugs and drug paraphernalia and things like that, like they do out there. I mean, they're really not helping them out there. They're helping them stay in their situation, you know.
California does that as well as giving them voter registration.
Yeah,
because that's their permanent address, and I bet they could write that
on
a voter registration. Oh. With the number of outdoor homeless encampments once again on the rise, Deputy St. Paul Police Chief Jeremy Ellison, who will soon serve as the interim police chief, joined St. Paul Fire Chief Butch Incas at the state capitol this week, but not to plead for more funding for police cars or fire trucks. Oh, no. Don't do your job. Instead, they're asking for $14 million from the state budget surplus to house the homeless.
Wow.
Bottom line, our personnel are begging for help with the unsheltered. The only skill set our units really have is picking these individuals up, leaving them at the hospital. And that's not the only help these individuals need. If the resources aren't there, somewhat futile effort. The police and fire officials were joined by St. Paul Deputy Mayor Jamie Tincher, as well as letters of support from the St. Paul Downtown Alliance and the outgoing president of Greater St. Paul Building Owners and Managers Association, as well as Ramsey County officials. Well, you seem to have enough money over there.
Yeah.
Sorry, does Ramsey County lack money? Their tax levy not high enough?
Maybe that's it. They need more money.
It just is a nightmare. We can't shut down encampments. We can't relocate folks unless there's a place to put them, said Jesse Molnar, Senior Control District. These folks need a long-term solution. By December 2020, what do they do in the winter, by the way? They fly south?
I don't think so. I mean, like this, the guy in the article here, he took a Greyhound up here and didn't have money to take a Greyhound back. So, I don't know.
I mean, this is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Well, you'll be glad to know, and I mean, this article was from May, but so far city and county efforts have won some backing in the DFL-controlled House through a bill sponsored by State Representative Rena Moran of St. Paul. Oh, Moran, I'm sorry. I like her better as Moron. Though compromise language has whittled the funding down to only $8 million. They're still working on the Senate, despite some bipartisan backing, including Republican Senator Dave Senjem, who is a Senate sponsor. County officials have called homelessness a regional problem. Actually, it's not. Unfairly shouldered by the two core cities. Actually, it isn't.
It's a family problem.
But it's happening there right now. It's not happening everywhere else.
Right.
So on and so forth. I mean, I'm not baffled that that's their solution, to go throw money at it and so on. What's going to happen once we house the homeless? How long do they get to stay there?
Right. And how are you going to stay there if you don't want to work, or you can't work, or you can't keep a job because you're on drugs and alcohol, or you have mental illness?
Who's going to buy clothes? Who's going to pay the bill? Who's going to get the food?
Fix the sink when it gets clogged? Who's going to mow the lawn? Who's going to...
They get free cable?
Who's going to re-roof the house? Might as well. I mean, that's a right? Cable is a right.
I think it's become one.
Don't they say that? Broadband is a right?
That's right. Cell phones.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the expectation on somebody? Now, look, somebody needs a place to stay for a month, and they end up getting a job, and they end up, doing something great. Good luck to them.
Yes.
But
we want that kind of success. We want people to be able to turn their lives around.
Well, and people deserve second chances. I mean, I've said this before. I don't subscribe to the theory that the expectation on somebody is perfection. I've been down and out several times in my life, and I've always come back, but I have that work ethic and so on and so forth. I've lost jobs. I've moved. It's something that a lot of people have gone through. But again, if we're going to house folks and we're not going to require anything of them, they're going to stay indefinitely.
Right.
Why go work and pay for my own groceries when somebody will give me a house and feed me?
Yes.
I mean, it's just...
It's true.
I have to jump first, Jay. We'll talk about your old hometown up in Duluth.
Oh, boy.
In a minute here, but
you got to make things a little bit uncomfortable to get people to challenge themselves to move into a better situation.
Yeah, I mean, again, you have to require things of them. This is something that's just amazing from thehill.com. This is from July 5th, 2022. This is how effed up California is. Gavin Newsom, their governor, signed into law the Safer Streets for All Act, which decriminalizes loitering in a public place with the intent to engage in sex work.
How does that make the streets safer?
Not only this, but I want you to listen to Newsom's comments that prostitution is still illegal. But if you want to loiter in the streets with the intent to prostitute yourself, that's okay.
Right. This word safer, I don't think it means what you think it means.
Golly.
Safer streets for all, but we're going to turn a blind eye to crime, making them less safe for the everyday person that
no,
wants
you know
to walk
why?
on them.
It's written later.
Oh.
Loitering charges have disproportionately affected transgender women.
Oh, of course.
Earning similar provisions in the state's moniker of walking while trans laws.
What?
Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo repealed the anti-state's loitering law, citing violence against transgender women.
Really? There's a law against walking while transgender? You show me that law.
By the way,
I would like to see it referenced.
By the way, the bill, this is hilarious.
Yeah.
The bill was sponsored by California State Senator Scott Wiener. I'm not kidding. His last name was Wiener. Talking about transgender laws. And his last name is Wiener. On Friday, Wiener commended Newsom for backing the measure, which was co-sponsored by a coalition of current and former sex workers and LBQTGLFMNOP advocates from the Reach Program of Los Angeles and the Trans Latino Coalition and the Asian Pacific Legal Outreach I mean, can you believe that?
That's a mouthful.
By the way, introducing the legislation, said Wiener, that black women accounted for 56% of the loitering charges between 2017 and 19, despite being only 10% of the city's population. Well, maybe they were the ones loitering.
Yeah. What percentage of people that were loitering were they? How about that? If you got a bigger population sample that's not loitering, you can't count them. They're not breaking the loitering law. My goodness. That's like saying, well, only 2% of the population murdered somebody, but yet we find that is disproportionate to the amount of the population because it was mostly this group over here. But 98% of the people aren't murdering people. It's ridiculous on its face because it doesn't mean anything.
Thank you, Governor, said Wiener, for once again showing that California will stand with the LBGTMNOLNONOP community and communities of color, said Wiener. The discrimination law targeted and profiled black, brown, and trans women. It needed to go, said Wiener. So there you go, Jay.
Wow.
Maybe he's a drag queen named Wiener?
Maybe he's one of the people that went over to the Bastille Day celebration in a dress. Thanks for doing that.
Somebody else had Wiener's Wiener. So you'll be glad to know, though, that the intent to prostitute yourself is okay on public streets, but actually doing it is naughty.
Yeah.
Now, how about what's going on in your old stomping grounds, Jay?
Well, if you're talking about Duluth, that means there's nothing good going on.
Well, you know what? I hate saying it because I mean, I do love that area. I mean, I love the...
Yeah, I do too. It pains me. Pains me to no end.
I don't know. It's a rough...
This is from the venerable Duluth News Tribune.
Yeah, and they just cut me out.
Really? They have not cut me out yet. Local View, Duluth's focus on homelessness.
This is actually a decent article by a union guy.
Yeah, imagine that. It snubs locals, shortchanges economic development. This is an opinion piece, but yes, it is... So Duluth has been a great place to raise a family and live for as long as anyone reading this can remember. That's actually not too true. I had to leave Duluth because there was no work for me, just saying. And because all they have now, it seems to be, are tourist jobs or jobs in the medical industry. So it has unfortunately seen more glorious days. Industry thrived. It was good, but now it's kind of a city that's a little bit on the depression. So there used to be good business. Yeah, there used to be good businesses around the city and in the area, which allowed residents to have good paying jobs and to be able to afford their own homes or to rent a place to call home, young and old. Most of us live and continue to stay in Duluth for 3 reasons. Tourists come from all over the world to visit this amazing city for 2 of the above reasons and several other reasons. What? That's confusing. Okay, unfortunately, I and a majority of tax-paying residents of this city see this coming to an end with some of the decisions we have seen made by our city government, but you keep electing the same one. Homelessness is only...
I'd like to see who their unions have been endorsing, too.
Yes. Homelessness is only increasing in Duluth, which is a sad state of affairs, but why is the homeless population growing so fast? Is it that Duluth residents are failing on such economic hardship... or falling on such economic hardship to the point they are losing it all? Or is it that the city government in Duluth continues to make homelessness a priority over economic development in Duluth? Are people coming in from all over the area because of handouts? Businesses continue to leave Duluth due to lack of support from city government and the regulations placed on businesses by the city. Public facilities for residents to use and come together as a community continue to be demolished with no replacements in sight. The infrastructure, we all know what a joke the roads are in Duluth, and our water lines are at the end of their lives and fail often. Sounds like a great place. Unless something is used by or seen by a tourist, it's not a priority to the city, it seems. Isn't that what I just said before the beginning of this article? Amazing. When I read about the things the city continues to prioritize over economic development, the phrase from the movie Field of Dreams goes through my head. If you build it, they will come. So do we as Duluth want to build more and more homeless facilities to bring in more and more homeless? Or do we in Duluth want to build up our community with good jobs, good businesses, and good public facilities for the residents to use and where they can collaborate, your favorite word, with other community residents? Do we want to bring back the middle class? What we do today will affect our future for years to come. So, Zach Radzak. I don't think that's his real name. I don't know. President of Teamsters General Local 346.
But it's not his real name.
Zach Radzak? I think that's a nickname, isn't it? It's kind of like John Johnson or Andy Anderson. I don't know, maybe a nickname. Maybe not. Maybe that's his real name. Anyways, that's the article. And it's true. I mean, I grew up in Duluth. I was born there. I was raised there. And then when I got done with college, there was no work to be had. So I came down to the cities, and here I remain. Not saying the cities is better. I'm just saying Duluth, you got no jobs. Everything has been about tourism. Turning the old Clyde iron plant into a restaurant and an event center. I mean, it sat empty for decades, sure, when Clyde moved to Texas. But you know what? They left. I think Diamond Tool left.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not the port city it used to be.
Right.
Clearly.
You got the stinky old paper mill still, I guess, down in West Duluth. But yeah, well, I mean, you still got boats coming in and out of the port. I think the railroad has a decreased level of importance from what it used to have. It used to be a major port, and it's still a port, but I don't think it still is as consequential.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, here's my question, though. Has the city council caused that? Has that been, why are the businesses leaving? I mean, is it that the area is I'm sure it's a multifaceted thing, but I mean, Duluth is still a top 10 city in this state as far as population. And if you add all the cities around that, they have a what you'd call their statistical area of Superior right across the way there. You'd think it could thrive again.
It could with the right leadership. I think part of the issue is the city, high taxes, pushing tourism over other types of industry. Part of it's the state with their high taxes, how difficult it is to start, own, and operate a business in this state. That's two things.
Problem everywhere, though.
Yeah. Well, some places it's easier. I think it's easier to own a business in Texas than it is here.
Sure. Depends on the business, I guess, to a certain degree. But you think it's easier in the Twin Cities?
No, I just think because of the sheer population.
So what's Duluth have to do, Jay? I'm going to put you in charge. You're the. We've declared an emergency.
Ha! Good.
In Duluth, and we're going to put one person in charge. What's the first three things you do?
First three things that I do.
Actually, I'm going to make four because changing to even year elections would be my fourth thing. But
yes, I will put that on the list.
It won't be number one, but it would be up there.
That would be something that I think they should do. Absolutely. A city that size, you should be capitalizing on when most voters vote, not just when a small fraction vote.
And what's strange is the bigger the city in Minnesota, the more likely you are to have odd year elections.
Yeah, isn't that it?
Minneapolis, St. Paul, Duluth for starters, Bloomington,
St. Louis Park.
other big cities. St. Louis
Boulder
Park's got
Valley.
40,000 residents. Yeah. Bigger the city, the more likely you are to have odd year elections, which is funny.
Yeah. But that's neither here nor there, I guess. Okay, so that's not number one, but that is one of the things that I think need to happen. Secondly, you've got to get rid of a lot of the restrictions to opening businesses. Whether they're environmental restrictions, whether it is just it's not the type of business they're looking to create. You
a lot of that.
You have to make it easier for businesses to open. I think Duluth is a very attractive place to open a business when you look at it demographically, when you look at the location, but it's the dang taxes and regulations that kill it every time. Another thing they need to do is police have to be supported, and they can't be releasing the people that they put into jail, right? And attracting. It happens to be a major thoroughfare for drugs coming into the area. They come up through Wisconsin into Duluth and then into northern Minnesota.
That says a lot then about the homeless problem too.
Right.
Exactly.
Homeless come into there. They also have like a Jefferson Lines.
I've taken that before.
Yes. Terminal. Also, I know prostitution is because of the ships coming in. There is an industry for that as well. So you do have a lot of crime in that city, even though you would think based on its size, maybe there wouldn't be quite so much, but there's a sizable amount.
Yeah, I would say I may interrupt you here. Duluth still ranks as the 6th most populous city in
the 6th.
Yes.
It's dropped 3 spots.
Goes Minneapolis, St. Paul, Rochester, Bloomington, Brooklyn Park, Duluth.
Wow.
I live in Plymouth. They're number 7.
Duluth used to be number 3.
Yeah, it was number 3 for a long, long time.
When I graduated, they had 92,000 people plus in that city, and now they're down to about 87.
87,000. They actually had no growth over the last 10 years.
Wow. Way to go. Now, granted, some of that is people moving out into the townships into Hermantown.
What other towns are around there?
Proctor. Of course, the best one.
Yeah.
And then Hermantown, you've got Cloquet, Scanlon, Esco. There's Thompson, Superior. And then you've got, I think Rice Lake became a city. It was a township. You've got Solway Township, Midway Township, Friedenberg Township.
They are the only city in the Minnesota top 10 that did not grow from 2010. Even Minneapolis and St. Paul grew. Not much with their populations.
Right.
But Minneapolis still had more people in it in 1950 than it does today. So I don't know how you want to look at that. Rochester's been a growing city. I don't know why. The Mayo
All
Clinic,
medical,
probably. Yeah. And Bloomington, Brooklyn Park, Plymouth, they've been growing but they're fully grown now.
Right.
I don't think they can add anymore. But yeah.
Duluth doesn't have much room to grow either. It's a fully developed city. I mean, it's Hermantown, it's the townships.
It's their quote unquote suburbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got all that, but
no, I interrupted you. Keep going here.
What am I at? Was that 3 or is that all 4?
That might have been. I don't know. I just had to throw out the.
But I think those are some very real world things that you can do. You clean up crime. You open the doors and drop a bunch of the business regulations. You make it even your elections and whatever I said the other one was.
Well, and I would say too, Duluth actually most populous it was 1960, 107,312.
Yep.
It's steadily declined. It's been pretty stable for the last 25 years or so.
It just shows what poor leadership that city has had for decades.
Yeah, that's too bad because I love the North Shore. I think it's one of the treasures of the state. The Duluth, quote unquote, statistical area, which they don't really.
Does that go up as far as Two Harbors?
I don't think Two Harbors is included in that.
Because I know they have a port there as well.
Yeah,
and it's part of the same railroad network.
Well, you're going to make me look that up, Jay.
Well, sorry. We don't talk about statistical areas a lot on the show, so our listeners may not be super familiar with that term, but there are a number of what they call economic statistical areas that get designated based on the dependency of the certain area on each other, and you'll have a grouping of cities, maybe a large one, some small ones. You'll have townships thrown in there, and they're all supposed to kind of be part of a network.
Yeah, here's I found it out. They include Superior in it, the Duluth Superior Statistical Area. Okay. Basically, it's a city and its suburbs, if that makes any sense. Because St. Cloud has a statistical area of White Park, St. Joseph, the areas around there. Brainerd and Baxter have one. They have Pillager. They have a few other cities. I know Rochester has one. But here's the Duluth. It's called the Principal City. That's what they name it. It would include Cloquet, Hermantown, Superior. And then here are the smaller communities with 10,000 or less. This is not including, I don't think this includes the townships, but we have Proctor, Saginaw.
Yeah.
I thought that was in Michigan. Okay.
Yes, it is.
Is that a Merle Haggard song? Rice Lake, Escargot, Scanlon, Carlton, Renshall, and then Oliver, Wisconsin.
Renshall, okay.
That's what they list as the Duluth statistical area. So I guess it doesn't go up to Two Harbors. Even though you'd think it would, but...
Since Renshall's included, I'm surprised that they don't have like Carlton or Mattawa in that as well.
Carlton was included.
Oh, was it? Okay.
But Mattawa is not.
Okay.
Doesn't Superior seem like a town of more than 30,000 people?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know what the population is.
26,751. It's barely bigger than Crystal.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it is flat and boring.
Yeah, it certainly is.
And with the 25-mile-an-hour speed limits that they've had since the 70s.
Oh my goodness.
Oh. Yes.
Brazoodle.
Ugh.
But yeah, again, I mean, the way, let me just go back again to something. I mean, the way we have attacked since the 60s in particular, the way we have gone after poor people has just so not worked. Right. Why is it that nothing changes? I mean, why is it that the same things are done constantly? Just why?
Well, because government thinks they have the answer, and they think that by giving a handout, that's going to change everybody's situation, and it has never changed a thing for anybody. You put somebody into a situation, you throw money at them, and then you tell them, if you ever make more than this amount, we're taking it all away. And so there's no way, no like steps and ladders, no way to climb out of that hole. It's like you're either in it or you're out of it. And there's nothing in between. And so because of that, and because they just throw money at people that they're mentally ill, and there's no kind of system for them to help them manage their money because they throw money at people that are addicted to drugs and alcohol, and they just spend the money on drugs and alcohol. Or, there are a billion reasons why what the government does not work. And I don't think that that's ever going to change. How can it?
Well, look, people have different levels they want to attain to in their life. I mean, everybody's not going to be a rousing success. That's just, nobody is.
Right.
But the idea that we're going to go back to these homeless encampments and we're just going to let people just sit there. No expectations that they do anything. No demand that they do anything. No amount of time. Okay, you got the summer to sit there.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to give you a 30-day warning that you're out of there. And nothing happens. I mean, and like the article you talked about in Duluth, does it just attract more people who want handouts? I mean, think about Minnesota. How do a bunch of people from Somalia end up in Minnesota? Of all places on earth, Jay, Minnesota is somehow where they end up. And again, I'm not
can thank the government for
I'm
that.
not picking on one community because you could do this with a lot of them. But how do they get from Somalia and Africa? How do they just end up in Minneapolis? How does that happen?
Well, the government has something to do with it. I think back in the 1800s, it was more natural. It's like, Ole came over on the boat and he moved over to the northern Minnesota. So I'm going to move over to be with Ole over in northern Minnesota so that we can have our families together.
Do we really talk like that?
Yes.
That's North Dakotian. That's what you're speaking there. North Dakotian.
No, northern Minnesota too. So I think it was more natural then.
Well, sure, you had Little Italy in New York. You had...
which makes more sense, though. You come off the boat in New York, you go through Ellis Island, and you set up shop there. That makes more sense. But I think it did happen throughout, and we see it, a huge German population in Wisconsin.
That's me as Minnesota as well.
Minnesota has one as well, around New Ulm and stuff like that. Lots of Scandinavians here in Minnesota. You've got lots of English in the eastern and actually some of the southern parts of the U.S. as well, like Kentucky. So it happened, where people would kind of congregate and move together, I think. But it's happening so rapidly now, and it seems like it's just managed by the government. Well, okay, you're coming here as a refugee. Here's where you go.
Well, and it's so disruptive. It's so too much change over too short of a period of time.
Right.
It's not organic change.
Right.
Like I've said, if you look at, I'll give you an example. If you look at, I'll say my family, I'll use my mom's side of the family. My maternal grandfather grew up on a farm out in Silver Lake.
Mm-hmm.
After World War II, he came to Minneapolis for work. They didn't have anything for him out there.
Right.
And so Highway 7 was a dirt road. Back then, It was like a 2-hour drive from Silver Lake, which if you don't know where that is, it's out by Glencoe and north of Hutchinson there. And so, right now it's a pretty short drive, but then it was over 2 hours to drive to Minneapolis. Set up shop in South Minneapolis, found work in Minneapolis. My mom and her two brothers, my Uncle Mark, my Uncle Mike, they went to Roosevelt High School in South Minneapolis. Then when they grew up, they moved out to those first and second ring suburbs. It's how my mom and dad ended up in Crystal, and then I ended up in Plymouth and my sister ended up in Champlin, but it was organic. It happened over generations.
Right.
Nobody picked my family up and dropped me somewhere. Yeah. And I think that's one of the problems too. If you just leave things alone, you look at minorities, Jay, and some of them have done the same thing. They grew up in Minneapolis. Now they're living in some of the first and ring suburbs. Look at what's, Robbinsdale, Crystal, New Hope, they're 20% minority now or something like that.
Right.
I guarantee you their parents and grandparents doubt or they've gotten, maybe they don't work in Minneapolis anymore. I don't know. For whatever reason, they've chosen to move somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So again, one of the things that has to happen is the manipulation of that. That you have to allow people to be successful. That can take time.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that's missing. But I'll tell you what, with these encampments, I keep saying this, if their incentives matter. Think about somebody on unemployment, Jay. You could sit on unemployment for months.
Yeah.
And when those checks start running out, mm-hmm. What do you want to bet? Somebody's intensity of looking for a job is increasing by the day. Because they know they can't sit on it forever.
Right.
You let people sit on it for 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. You let somebody sit on unemployment for 6 months. After 5.5, I guarantee you they're looking for a job as hard as they possibly can.
Yeah, a lot of people are. You have other people that aren't looking for any jobs. So
right, but as soon as you get off the government roll...
Well, you have to.
So incentives matter, and I think that's something that's not focused on.
It's why unemployment has always had an end date.
Right.
You can only be on it for so long, and you have to have a job by then. And if you don't, you're going to be in some tough times until... it's like a year that you can be off until you are able to get on it again.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I think it's 6 months every 2 years or something.
Something like that. Yeah.
And again, people get laid off. Okay, look, it happens. Okay. Yeah. It's not always somebody's fault. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for unemployment, but to me, the incentive to get off is what was missing for a long time in our welfare system until welfare reform in the 90s. It was just stay on it, stay on it, stay on it. You could just do it as long as you wanted to. So, I mean, it's a, complete and total a problem. And the idea that it's kind of like a parent who keeps bailing out a kid.
Yeah.
A kid is never going to grow up and do something if they know they have a safe place to fall every single time. And it's just the same thing with citizens, unfortunately.
Right.
So, one thing that worries me is these public-private partnerships. I'll tell you that's something that I hate that word.
Oh.
And it is really concerning when, because here's my question. All these businesses that give money to this stuff, I got a better idea. Why don't you hire these people? See, they don't want to hire them.
Right.
They want to throw money at it, write it off on their taxes, and look the other way. Mm-hmm. That's a problem too. Target's out there giving money to Black Lives Matter. I got a better idea. Why don't you give all your black employees a huge raise?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be better?
Well, I don't think you should give just your
black
but I'm
employees.
Saying,
if you want to affect the lives right now.
Look at the people that are working for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why don't you provide scholarships, for people to go to college, or go to a vocational school or whatever.
Right.
And it's just the money everywhere is so misused. Mm-hmm. It's just it's embarrassing. It makes me sick. Just makes me sick.
Yes.
Everything makes me sick. I'm just an angry person. 6 years on this show, and I'm still pissed off all the time. I'll tell you what.
Yes.
We got to at some point, Jay. We got to do some more positive shows because. Yeah. I'll tell you what, I get as madder than a dog in a barrel full of fleas sometimes. And it's just, it's just difficult to watch. It's hard to watch a city like Duluth that I truly and honestly love. Minneapolis, St. Paul, they can go fly a kite. But Duluth is an area, I would live up there if I could in that area. Maybe not Duluth, but in that area there, I go there. I was just up in I think it's just wonderful up there, but it sucks when the worst part of your city is your government.
Yes, it does.
They'll just call it New Hope.
No hope. Yes. I don't know. I mean,
let Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Do you wish you still lived in that area? Would you, if you had your druthers, would you rather live up there than live in the cities?
You're going to get me in trouble. No, but here's why. Well, I mean, obviously, you've got the taxes, you've got the lack of employment, you've got the downward spiral.
Right. Pretend everything was even.
Everything was even, and it was actually a flourishing city. And no, and that is because I spent so many years driving those hills in the winter, and you get into a big storm and you can't really control where you're going. I mean, it takes a whole nother breed of person to live in Duluth, I'll tell you what. And I've done it. I've been up there when pea soup fog, and my grandma had given me like a spotlight that plugged into the cigarette lighter, and I would have to put it out the window and shine it right in front of my car at the lines on the side of the road and in the middle of the road to make sure I couldn't see more than 15 feet in front of the car. So
I don't want to be a truck driver in Duluth.
No, you really don't want to be, but it's terrible as far as that goes. And just summer is so much shorter up there. Summer is my favorite time of year. And it's a shorter summer. It's a colder summer. It might be 80 above the hill and 55 down at the lake. It's
true. 4th of July, I had a hoodie on.
I do love the city of Duluth, but yeah, I don't think I could do it. The older I get, the more I wish I lived like in Santa Monica or something like that.
Oh, God.
But that is if everything was on the even.
Oh, okay.
Everything, you know what I mean? If the California that we think about from the Beach Boys. If we lived in the Beach Boys, California, I'd be all about it.
See, it's funny. If I had to pick another state, I don't know what state I'd pick. I mean, I've visited 37 states, and I have no idea what state. If I had to pick a state other than Minnesota, I don't know where I'd go.
Yeah.
I love Denver. I thought Denver was a cool place, but I really don't like the direction Colorado's going.
Right, I don't either.
I love Florida.
Yeah.
But I don't care for it to rain every day. I love Texas. And Texas is a great place. But I need lakes and trees and things like that.
Those man-made lakes just don't cut it, dude.
Yeah, the reservoirs. I mean, I don't need armadillos in the front yard. I mean, there's some things I don't really like. The greatest big city I've been to, and you're going to laugh at this, is Chicago. I think Chicago's a great city, great sports town, great place to eat, great place to visit.
Yeah, I mean, great place to eat. I'll agree with that. My first trip to Chicago, I don't remember how old I was, 12, maybe 13, I don't know. Went downtown. First thing I saw, some guy opens up his jacket, tries to sell us a watch. Right? Sorry, little.
Hey, remember, even a broken watch is right twice a day.
And then we drive all the way through the south side of Chicago. People have newspapers for curtains in the windows.
Good times.
And then we get to Comiskey Park because we're going to watch the Twins and the White Sox. And
now, is that the new Comiskey or the old?
No, this is the old one. And
green seats.
People were offering parking spots in their yards for money, and being what we had just driven through, we were kind of like, maybe we better keep going. And so we did not go to the Twins game that day.
Okay, I only went to New Comiskey Park, whatever it's called now. But I'll tell you what, my first trip to Chicago, I was about 23. And I saw the Cubs play the Mets at Wrigley Field. Carlton Fisk saying, "Take me out to the ball game," and he was right behind me.
Oh wow!
I kind of forgot him. Harry Carey had passed away, and I kind of forgot that they had like a celebrity do it all the time. And Carlton Fisk was maybe 5 rows behind me when he sang "Take Me." We had pretty good seats.
Yeah.
I think it was the 2000. I think the Mets went to the World Series that year, but lost to my Yanks. But yeah, I mean, it's Chicago. I don't know if I'd want to live in Illinois, but I mean,
I wouldn't. I'd rather live
Lake
in
Michigan.
Gary, Indiana.
Oh God, place that smells like a continuous fart. I did enjoy. Let me think. I do not like Arizona.
I liked Phoenix, Scottsdale area. I liked that.
Did you? I don't think there's anything special about Arizona.
I liked L.A. I did.
I remember going down to Venice Beach. I mean, I thought that was cool.
Santa Monica and Venice Beach, loved it. Yeah,
I liked San Diego in California.
Hadn't been there.
San Diego was a cool place to go, but I didn't care for.
Yeah,
San Diego's one of the few. I went there for 6 weeks for work, and I was actually not all that homesick. I hurt my back down there, and I remember the Republican convention I was watching, and I couldn't move out of my. I had to sleep in a recliner. That's how bad it was. But there's not a lot of places I'd want to. I love South Dakota, the western part of South Dakota.
I do too.
It's just,
Wyoming's beautiful.
Wyoming is a great state. Just a wonderful state.
I mean, minus Liz Cheney and all. But
yeah, well, I mean, I can handle one person that'll
goofball,
be dead before me. And I'm trying to think of... I never liked BIPOC. Couldn't stand New York.
Yeah, I never went there.
You're not missing anything. If I could go back, I'd go back to go there with my wife, and I'd go back there if she would go to a Yankee game with me. Other than that, I don't care. I like anything with, it's got to have lakes and trees, and that's my only negative about Texas.
Yeah.
Because I went to Dallas once. I thought Dallas was a great place.
Was it? I didn't get to see enough of it to really get a feel for it.
I wasn't there long enough, and that's part of the reason I want to go back so bad, is there's 150,000 things I'd like to do.
I loved Austin, as liberal as that city is.
See, I never went down there.
I had a blast,
Really?
Yeah.
See, I'd like to go to like Padre Island. I'd like to go southern Texas too.
Yeah.
But I mean, Texas is a place you could live there and never visit the whole states. I mean, it's just one of those types of places. I don't know. Actually, I'm chalking up another state. I've never been to Mississippi.
Oh, I've been there.
And I'm going to Biloxi. My wife and I are going to Biloxi in October.
You're going to have to look up the Shed barbecue. Oh.
The Shed.
Yes, good. Oh, let me tell you.
Okay.
Oof. Yes.
Let's see this.
It's not too far from Biloxi.
Okay, so I don't know where I would move if it wasn't in Minnesota.
Seychelles Islands.
Where are they?
It's out in the Indian Ocean.
Oh, jeez.
It's beautiful. You just have to
get you on Lost. Or what's that one movie? Swept Away. The Tom Hanks Swept Away.
Castaway.
Castaway.
It's not that kind of island.
What did I say?
They actually have a city.
What did I
Swept Away.
Swept Away.
Yeah, that sounds like a romantic comedy. Is what that sounds like.
Yes, Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan in that.
It's just something you'd find like on the Hallmark channel.
Hey, some of those sappy movies aren't bad. But let me just say this. So I don't know. I don't know where I'd go if I wasn't. I mean, it wouldn't be Omaha or something, but I'm just. I don't know what I'd do if it wasn't for Minnesota.
Yeah.
I've been to Pennsylvania. I've been to Ohio. I've been to Kentucky and Tennessee.
Yeah. I love Kentucky.
Well, I love the South, but I love the old South. And I think the South's character is unlike anything in the United States, but it's kind of like what's happened in New England. I mean, New England had their character for a while, and it's all been overtaken by, high density housing and banks and just isn't what it used to be. So, I don't know. I mean, it's been a long time since I've been to Atlanta. I was there maybe 20 some odd years ago.
Yeah.
There are parts of Florida I like, parts I don't like.
Yeah.
I mean, just be honest. And so I don't know where I'd move.
Yeah. Mobile, Alabama might be nice. I don't know.
It might be nice. I have no idea.
But everything's changing. That's the problem. Even things that I really want to see. I love Thomas Jefferson. I'd love to go see Monticello.
Sure.
However, it's gone woke.
Really?
Yes, it has. And so it
I've always wanted to
kills me.
I've always wanted to see Gettysburg, Monticello, and what's Washington's?
Mount Vernon.
Mount Vernon. I've always wanted to see that too.
No, like at Monticello, they have things about they take it as fact that Thomas Jefferson was with Sally Hemings, which has been debunked for the most part. Remember, that Jefferson was probably his brother that.
Jefferson was a widower. People always forget that too. His wife passed away. It wasn't, even if it was true, it wasn't it wasn't what people think. But I know it's terrible. That's so terrible. I've heard Monticello's a great place to visit, but and I'll tell you what, I hope that they don't disrupt the old Civil War sites. I mean, I've heard Antietam was always the best and most well kept. In Sharpsburg, Maryland, and of course that's like my ultimate summer trip would be doing that. I did get to see Fort Henry and Fort Donelson. Years ago. They're in Kentucky, Tennessee, that area. I wanted to go to Shiloh. Work wouldn't let me take my rental car that far. I didn't realize it was 3 hours away. So I mean, I hope they get preserved. It's sad.
Who knows with the way things are going?
Yeah, it's the destruction of the Old South, Jay. I mean, that's
destruction of everything that makes America America. I mean, that's really what it is. It is a destruction of everything that made us what we are. Because once you take that away, we're no different than anybody else. Then why does it matter if we're trying to preserve our heritage? If we're putting up a resistance not to slip into socialism or fascism. What does any of it matter when you strip away everything that made us special?
Yeah, and Thomas Jefferson did so many things in his life. I mean, aside from being president, the guy was an inventor. He was a writer. He was, the average person can't say 10 words of the Declaration of Independence, which is just sad. I mean, he contributed so much to American history. Just to see it, whitewashed. I go through the same thing in sports, like in baseball. I mean, the greatest commissioner of all sports, in my opinion, is Kennesaw Landis, and he's blamed for keeping black people out and all that. And it's mostly folklore. It's mostly BS, but you can't speak of him. There's a baseball Facebook group that I'm a part of, and anytime his name comes up, the woke people, it's the only thing they can say about him. This is a man who created the Hall of Fame, created the All-Star Game, got rid of gambling and things like that in the sport, put the game on the radio. I mean, lights, night games came in, kept it going during World War II. I mean, there's so many contributions he made. The guy died in 1944, and the Civil Rights Act was in 1964. So why is it Kennesaw Landis' fault? I mean, right? Come on.
Hey, but look at the current commission, huh? He got us changes in extra innings,
don't say
right?
That man's,
with a runner on second. Got us.
Don't say that man's name in my presence.
That's why I didn't.
On that note, we're gonna. I never thought I'd be longing for Bud Selig to come back. Bud's still around. I mean, I would take him in a heartbeat. Jay, it's that time again.
Yes.
You've got to give us, after a depressing show like that, Jay, I need it. I need styling and profiling, jet flying, limousine riding, wheeling dealing, son of a gun. Jason Bradley with the sign-off sermon. Take it away.
Thank you, Andrew. I just want to be clear about our subject matter today. Homelessness is a tragedy. And for whatever reason it is that people become homeless, it's never any good. It's not good for the people that are homeless. It's not good for the families, the friends, the people that they know. It's not good for us as a city. It's not good for us as a state. When you look at a kid, they're growing up, they're going through school. You never look at a kid and say, oh, that kid's going to end up homeless. You always look at the best of that kid. You always look at the promise. You always look at what that kid is capable of doing and just the potential that they have. But too many people have to go through situations in life which put them at a disadvantage. And because of that, for one reason or another, they end up homeless. And it is sad. But I think there's more that we can do. Unless you're the government, then you need to do less. I think that churches and charities and things like that can step it up. That recovery centers can try to work with those that want help from a substance abuse point of view, that where maybe the state actually could help some, the county could help some, have to dealing with mental illness. And how do you do that? Is it a group home situation? Is it, some sort of managed care through families? I don't know. I don't have the answers for that. But there is something more that can be done. Unfortunately, we look at the problem of homelessness and we want to stick a cure-all on it. And if we do this one thing, it's all going to be fixed. Well, it's not all going to be fixed because people are homeless for different reasons. They're not all homeless for the same reason. They don't all come from the same background. They don't have the same will or ability. And like I said earlier in the show, there are people that just choose that lifestyle, and you're never going to be able to put them in a house because that's not what they want. So what do we do? I mean, how do we fix this before it becomes epidemic in every community? That's the question before us. But I don't think the answer is more government. I don't think the answer is a one-size-fits-all solution where you throw money at it and you just watch it get better. No, that's really not it. Instead, we have to be so careful. We have to become more judicious about how we spend money. Sometimes the most loving response is a response where you have to compassionately say no. Now, that doesn't seem like compassion at all, but sometimes that's just the little bit of oomph somebody needs to turn their life around and make a better decision. You don't coddle them, and they do better. We have to be able to understand that, and in our cities, we have to be able to set people up to succeed. And sometimes that's just getting out of their way. So, how do we do that? I mean, it affects everything. It's the crime levels. It's our education. All of this is affected. So what we need are people with better ideas, people with new solutions, people you might not even know the answer yet. And that's okay. You don't have to come in knowing the answer, but coming in seeking a different answer, not just listening to the League of Minnesota Cities or listening to the National League of Cities or listening to this or that humanitarian organization that just, again, it's the same old thing that has never, ever, ever worked. You're dealing with crime. You're dealing with pregnancies. You're dealing with drugs. You're dealing with this. You're dealing with that. And none of us want to see this happen in our own cities. I mean, who wants to have these encampments where it's not safe for our children to be around? Where people get hassled for money, where crimes are being committed. We don't want that in our city. So we've got to come up with a different solution because what we've got isn't working. And also, like I said earlier, it is never fully 100% going to be solved. It's just not. But what can we do to alleviate some of it right now? What steps can we take for those who want to get out of it and are able to get out of it. And that's what we got to do. So I just want to challenge you with that, whether it's something you feel you want to tackle through your church, something that you want to tackle through being involved in government, something that you want to tackle through maybe arts and entertainment, that you want to have a fundraiser. So there are different ways, different things you can do. We just all kind of got to pitch in and do our thing. And so if you need our help, you're thinking of maybe doing the government option or getting involved in other ways, starting a podcast about your local area or things like that, hey, we're here. Get a hold of us. COMMsolutionsMN@gmail.com. That is COMMsolutionsMN@gmail.com. And we would love to start that discussion with you because this is an issue we care about too. And there is a way. And together we can all find it. We love you, Minnesota, but now it's your turn to get to work.
If I get too caught up